You're listening to Birthing Hope, a podcast designed to inspire women to create hope-filled lives in mind, body, and spirit. Living a hope-filled life means allowing light to be birthed in dark places. And although the world is full of darkness, you are pregnant with light. Join me every other Wednesday as I have real conversations with inspiring women designed to encourage you to push through the darkness and birth hope in your life and in the lives of those around you. My name is Delon LaDuff Gadsden. I am a Christ follower, author, artist, wife, and mom of 8. I will be your host and midwife as we take on the task of shining our lights and birthing hope into a dimly lit world. We've got hope to birth. Time to push. Hello, Hope Birthers, and welcome to episode 6 of the Birthing Hope podcast. Today, we are talking about the way we tell our stories and the impact it has on the condition of our hearts. We are all storytellers. The way we speak, dress, eat, drink, live, work, and play, even in the everyday mundane tasks, we all tell a story without even trying. Our lives are works of art, and each new day is a blank canvas set before us. So we ought to be more intentional about the narratives and the masterpieces we create. When done with intentionality, the way in which we share our voices and our stories reveals the heart. It is beautiful, it is healing, and it is hard, but we can do hard things. We can do heart things. My guest today is Dana Klein, and she is no stranger to this heart work. As a master storyteller through pencil artistry and fine art portrait photography, I cannot think of a better person with whom to discuss the art of storytelling. Dana creates thought-provoking images that stir emotion and tell powerful stories of hope. Her unique approach to creative expression carries a depth and weight that will inspire you to make your own life a work of heart. Please join us as we discuss the hope to do the heart things. Welcome, Dana. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Delon. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. So, as I was preparing for our conversation, I came across a quote from a lady named Amy Cuddy. And she says, "The way you tell your story to yourself matters." And I feel like that is absolutely true. But I also feel as though it is true for the way that we tell our stories to the world. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. I think it's very important for all of us to come to a place where we're comfortable with our own story, whatever that story is. For some of us, it takes longer to get there than others. I think for me, it took me a good 20 to 30 years to really feel comfortable, really going deep and really sharing my true story with the world. But I think it's so important to get there or get halfway there and find comfort in that journey so that you can make more real connections with people, because that's really where those connections begin, is when you go a little deeper and you're really real with your story so you can hear the realness in other people's stories.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. It took me a long time to get there as well, because my story includes being raped and molested as a little child. And that gave me a very tough and rough exterior. And so I was very guarded in how I told my story. I was very guarded in terms of transparency. And I thought that vulnerability was a sign of weakness. So I believe that now, being vulnerable, allowing yourself to really connect with other people, it requires that coming out of that shell and just letting it all out and being truthful and honest, whatever that might look like, whether it's tearful or not, because when we are vulnerable, it is truly when we are our strongest selves, because it takes courage, it takes authenticity, And it just takes so much strength to put yourself out there and allow yourself to truly be seen by other people. And truth be told, if we do not take control of the narrative of our story, and if we don't get in the driver's seat and be a willing participant in telling our life and telling our stories and telling our truths to the world, then the world will craft a narrative for us. And oftentimes that's done through a tainted lens where, the world can see you through so many different filters that are oftentimes unfair. And so if we aren't the ones who tell the world our story, then the world will certainly tell our story for us, and it won't always be the proper depiction or paint us in the best light.
Absolutely. I think once we can get to that place where you can be real and be vulnerable, like you said, I think it's a key for other people. It opens the door to other people feeling like it's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
For them to dig deeper and for them to share difficult things that they've been through. Right. And that's where the connection begins. Is someone has to share that key first.
Right, absolutely. I agree. And telling our stories, it requires voice. And voice, to me, I always equate voice with your identity. It's who you are. Voice comes in many expressions. It isn't just the audible words that are coming out of our mouths, but it's in the way we dress and how we walk into a room and how we style our hair, and it just all of the different things that we do that we really are telling others about ourselves and who we are. And art and images share and express voice. And that is your lane because you are a visual artist. You specialize in pencil artistry and as well as photography and telling these stories through images and photographs. What is your approach to sharing voice? Because for me, sometimes as a writer, I find myself where I don't have the words. Sometimes I'm like, I don't have the words for this. Or sometimes I even feel like there are no words that can accurately describe or convey what I'm feeling or what I'm experiencing or what I'm going through. And those are the times that I feel my art calling me, because if my viewers didn't know already, I'm a pencil artist as well. And so that's when I feel the art calling. That's when I feel it saying, let me out, come on and play, and I'll help you express and share the story that you're trying to tell through an image. And so that's like kind of my process of how I move from one to the other. What is your approach to sharing your voice?
Oh, that's a great question. When I was younger, when I was a little girl, I was very shy and quiet. And I lived in this house with a large family, loud family, and I often felt unheard and unnoticed. So for a very long time, I didn't feel like I had a voice. But I kept to myself. I was always very creative, and I was always watching and kind of trying to dive into other people's stories, listening to their conversations. So it was very powerful for me as I got older to combine that voice I never thought I had with my gifts as an artist, to combine those two. And so it just came so naturally to me to tell things in a visual way. So I've done that through my pencil portraits and my photography.
So, and talking about that, like right now, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And one of the ways that you have painted these pictures and told these stories is you are known for Project Shine. And that was a breast cancer awareness project that you did for how many years did you do that?
I did it for 5 years in Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And in those images, you crafted these stories that really gave voice to the women in the images. So they're breast cancer survivors, and here you were creating images that gave voice to their power, to their beauty, reminding them that what had happened to them and what they'd walked through didn't leave them less than, but more empowered and more awesome and brilliant. You really did a beautiful job of shining in a light on who they are as people. Tell us more about that and how your images came into play with that project.
Yeah, that was it. It's one of my favorite projects I've ever done. It was the first one I ever done when I launched my business, and that's where we met. So it's a really special project. And it came about because of my best friend had breast cancer. She was undergoing treatments. But the idea for that project was, like you said, to remind these women that they're still beautiful, they're still feminine, no matter what the cancer may have taken from them. So it was a chance to distract them from from all the side effects that they are going through with the medications they're on. It was a really good distraction for them to just take a day to be pampered and to focus on things that gave them strength. So I like to interview these women and find out if there were certain symbols or people or things that got them through some of their most difficult times. And I tried to incorporate those into some of the composite images that I created.
Can you tell us about any of them in particular?
Yes, sure. There's one that I did out here. So I started out in Charleston doing Project Shine. We moved out west. And the first year that I did Project Shine out here, I met a woman who was diagnosed. She had 2 young kids, and she was struggling. And I asked her, what gives you strength? What things along your journey, along your treatments, did you find comfort in? And so in our interviews and just discussions about her experience, what she's been through, she mentioned that she kind of at times felt like a beacon of light. And that really stuck with me because it was so important to her along her journey. So in the very end, her composite, if I can paint a picture for you, she's standing in a boat with this long flowy dress in the wind. She's on her journey in this boat, and she's holding a lantern with a candle in it, and that's her beacon of light. So as much as I'm creating these composites to tell a story, it's not my story to tell. I'm really trying to tell her story so that she can look at this image and really gain comfort in it. I wanted the image to mean something to her. So those parts of her story that I incorporated, that's what makes the image important to her. So an interesting part of this story is I recently found out this past year, sadly she passed away. Her cancer had returned and she had passed away, but her family reached out to me and mentioned that she had put this image, she printed it out big, put it in her bathroom above her bathtub.
Wow.
And the reason she did that was because she would take a soak every night to relax and just to center herself again. And she would sit there and look up at this image and gain so much strength from it. And it meant the world to me to hear that. I did not know that she did that. And I didn't realize how powerful it was for her to see herself in that light.
Wow, that's amazing. That reminds me of a quote by Oprah Winfrey. She said, "Every person has a story with the power to crack you wide open." And I feel like that is what you help your clients do, is to tell these beautiful stories And case in point, like this particular woman with Project Shine, that definitely is a story that will crack you wide open. That is a story that will, no matter who you are, what your background is, or where you come from, there's some sort of connection that you can find with that. There is of love and just sympathy and empathy, and your heart can go out to someone that is in that position. And to be able to craft an image that makes someone feel and remind them so much of their power and how powerful they are and the difference that they can make in this life. And so here she's gone, but yet her journey is still inspiring, and it's inspiring you to continue doing the work and to continue creating these images that tell these amazing stories for others. So that is just awesome. That is just so touching. The Bible says hope deferred makes the heart sick. And that's how we know, for me, I truly believe that hope is a work of heart, that it requires doing work. It requires doing hard work. That's why I feel like telling our stories requires such intentionality. But it's not easy. We have to show up every day. I feel every single day we're given this blank slate, this blank canvas where we are in charge of the story that we're going to create that day. What story am I going to tell the world today? What am I going to put out there today? What amazing thing am I going to illustrate for someone today? And so I feel like that requires us truly showing up and doing the work, because sometimes the content that we have to work with is not always bright and bubbly. Sometimes we're going through periods of darkness, and we're going through hurt, or we're going through a struggle, and we have to really sift through it all in order to find that piece of hope. What am I going to tell? What story am I going to tell? And as we're doing that, I feel like that really begins to work on our hearts. So I would like to ask you, in terms of creativity and creative expression and the space that it can create for hope in our lives, how important is it to you to make space for hope in your life, and how do you achieve that?
That's a great question. Like most people, I've had my own struggles in my life. And I think I have to remind myself on sometimes a daily basis, but I've gotten better at it because it's just habitual now. But I do remind myself that no matter what's happening, how dark it is or how difficult things are right now, that there's always some bright light, something good surrounding me that I can grab onto, that kind of just gets me through that time. And I like to share that with my clients. So you mentioned this month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's also Pregnancy and Infant Loss Month, which is who I draw pencil portraits for. That's a community that I've been working with for, over 20 years now. And it's a sad subject. It's this really tragic topic. And when I approach those clients, my goal is to give them a brighter image of their child that they don't have. They have some very graphic images that just show hurt. And when I create my drawings, I tell my clients that I'm going to remove all those hurts. I just want to show their baby as if it's sleeping peacefully, and add things that are meaningful to them, whether if they believe in God and heaven, that I can create that scene for them if that's important to them. So no matter the difficult situation, I'm always trying to improve it to just lift people up from where they are.
And it's so funny that, how we were talking and how this came to be. we weren't even thinking about the fact that it was Breast Cancer Awareness Month and Infant and Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month, because we are connected in both of those ways. Because we first met when you were doing Project Shine, and now I am one of the 1 in 4 women who has experienced the loss of an infant or pregnancy. So in March, I miscarried our baby, and that's how Birthing Hope came to be. That's how this whole entire project was birthed and came to be. And I have to say, the last few days, as I've been seeing many women share little pieces of their stories of loss, of infant or pregnancy loss, I don't think I've ever told this before. And so I think this is a perfect time to do it, because it speaks to why what you do as a pencil artist in creating these images for these families that brings them peace and it brings them hope. I think it also gives them a new way to remember the situation, remembering the situation in a brighter, more beautiful way. Because when I reflect on the day that I was miscarrying, I think about how strong I had to be, because I have 8 children and 3 of them are girls, and they have a whole lot of long hair. And my twin daughters, I was washing and blow drying and styling their hair while I was losing the baby. And they had no idea what was happening. All they knew is I would just stop every few moments, I'll be right back. And I'd go to the bathroom. I was in pain. My heart was broken. And of course, I was, hemorrhaging. And I'd go to the bathroom and see what I'd see, cry a little bit, get myself together, and go back and finish blow drying and styling and talking with my daughters as if everything was okay. And that, I don't want to say it haunts me, but it doesn't bring fluffy memories back. It doesn't make me feel like I wasn't able to just, let's say, just sit comfortably, quietly, with maybe just some soft music and in the comfort of my room and in the quiet, so that I could just reflect. I still had to show up. I still had to be a wife and a mother. I was still going through the motions of the things of where, I had to be strong. And I'm not saying that anyone put that on me. It was just what I've maybe just been conditioned to do.
It's not uncommon. There's so many women I draw for have experienced the same thing. It's almost a motherly protectiveness, right? You're trying to protect while you're still going through something really, really traumatic. I've drawn for many families who have lost, let's say, their 3rd or 4th child. So they have older siblings who never got to meet their baby, their little baby. They wanted to protect them from that experience. They'll come back to me years later with a little bit of regret, because now they want the siblings to meet. They want them to know about each other. So that's where I come in, and I'm so glad I'm able to give that gift back to them, where I can actually introduce siblings to one another, which they never would have done before.
Right. And I don't think that I've ever seen anyone do what you do, which is creating a drawing of, well, this is what the baby could have looked like, and I just, and that's beautiful, because you do think about that. Well, what would she have looked like? Would she have had a lot of hair like her other sister? Would she have been bald like her mom was? Or, you just begin to, just really, think about those things of what could have been. And so being able to take the not so wonderful memories, just the struggle, really, the struggle of what you had to go through, and be able to put something else just more beautiful and hope-filled in its place, I think it's amazing. And I do think that the people who reach out to you, they are being intentional about how they want to tell this story. They are saying, hey, wait a second, I want to be a part of this narrative. What happened to me when I lost the baby, I had no control over, but I can control how I tell the story going forward. I can control what people know about this, how I share my reality and what I went through, and perhaps speak life, to someone else, or some glimmer of hope to someone else, or encourage someone else who may have gone through it, who might still be struggling with it. So yeah, I do. I think that is, I think that's amazing. I think that is amazing. We also come together to talk about the art of storytelling, which is what we've really been doing. But the art of storytelling, we're talking about how we tell our stories in our lives, how we tell our stories, you and I as artists, as you being a pencil artist and a photographer, me being a writer and an artist. But we are all artists. We're all storytellers. We're all crafting, these stories. But you also have just launched a new teaching program called The Art of Storytelling. So I just want you to share some of your thoughts on the art of storytelling in general, and then specifically tell us about this new teaching program that you've just started.
Sure. So when I look at life and the art of our own story that we're creating each and every day, I look at it like a book. Like today's a new page in our book, and we get to decide what's going to happen today. Every day and every moment there's choices, and depending on those choices, we can decide how our story is going to look. I think a lot of people don't realize how powerful they are in their story and in their decision making, because it does lead you to different paths. So I really encourage my kids to make really good choices, to really sit with things before they make a choice, because it is going to affect their story for that day or for that week or for that chapter in their life. So overall, that's how I kind of view storytelling in my own life. But yes, I launched an online teaching class recently to teach what I do with my composite photography. I've had many people reach out wanting to learn how I do what I do and make it look real and authentic. So I'm teaching other people how to take those different pieces and combine them together. So if you don't know anything about composite photography, it's basically taking different photos and weaving them together to tell a really special story. But it's really hard to do if you don't know how to do it right. I'm sure you've seen lots of composites that look fake and just it doesn't make you feel something. So that's what I'm teaching my students, is how to create really powerful, captivating images that tell your client's story.
And in fact, you did one for me for my first book cover, The Belief in Wings. My daughter was the model for it, and we went out to a field near the beach, and you took a photo of her, and many photos, and the magical world that you created around her. It was amazing. It was beautiful, and it was just perfection. And I also used your one of your composite images in a creative writing class that I teach in the summertime to kids at one of our local colleges here. And they had a great time with it. In fact, I do remember it being one of their favorite writing prompts. So I pull the images up on the screen, and I'm like, okay, here's your writing prompt. Write me a story. What's happening here? And so we've used your images with that as well.
I love to hear that because, when I was younger, I, unlike you, I was not good with words. I was not an avid reader or writer. It just did not come naturally to me. I was drawn to the picture books, the books with pictures. That's what drew me into the story, not the words, not actually reading, but it was the images.
Yes.
So I love to hear that now my images are drawing out stories from your students
Yes. And
and combining a writing element to
yes,
that. Because
absolutely.
everyone's viewing the image differently. So each story, everyone's going to come up with their own kind of take on what they're seeing.
Right.
And I love
Right.
that.
Absolutely. I do too. It's like it literally creates like just an art gallery. And you go into an art gallery and you're able to look at an image and you can begin to think what was the artist thinking, what was going on in their life, what are they telling me here, what's happening. I feel like our lives can be like that. What am I saying to the world with the different images and the different things that I'm putting out there, the story that I'm telling, even when I'm not speaking, even when I'm not sharing words, when I'm just sharing the image of myself, when I'm sharing images around myself. What story am I creating and crafting, for the world as people are walking by? I mean, you even said yourself, as people are walking by, you're just looking at them and you're observing, and your imagination is whirling and going as you are watching people. It's like a moving, living art gallery. You also, speaking of art, moving and living, for me, I have, we've been friends for a long time, and I have admired your work from the day that I met you. And I feel like your work, you take on the responsibility, and you take on the task and the honor of telling other people's stories. But I feel like in the process, you are also telling your story. And the story that I know about you is that you are one who, not only are you inspired by hope, but you inspire hope in others, because the worlds that you create and that you craft through your images, they're so full of light and life and beauty and power and just the amazement and the majestic feel that it can give you when observing your work. You've taken that with you to Park City, Utah, where you and your family have lived now for the last 4 years, right?
4 going on 5. Yep, goes
Wow.
quick.
And so, even in the midst of this pandemic, when it all began, you had an idea to inspire hope in your community. And that was, what was it? The Red Umbrella Project, the scavenger hunt.
The scavenger hunt. Yes.
Share that with everyone.
You want to hear about that? Okay. Yes. So during these crazy times when we're all stuck in or places are closing, and it's a struggle for everybody. The first thing I thought of was, how can I help? And that's just what my go-to. How can I use what I'm good at and help others? So I came up with this scavenger hunt where I have a collection of Red Umbrella photography, and some of them are composites. And I partnered with several small businesses in Park City, and we placed them in the windows. So there was a little community scavenger hunt, and I wanted to do this not just for the small businesses, because I know they're hurting and they're struggling to keep the doors open, but I wanted to do it for the community too, because it's been really heavy on all of us, and a lot of people are really, really struggling just emotionally with this whole situation. So I thought it would be a good distraction to get people out, but still in a safe way, so they wouldn't have to go indoors if they didn't want to. But just to get them out, have a good distraction, and give them something a little bit fun to do.
Yes, yes. And in doing that, it really it can, it brings people together and really does begin to give you some perspective on all that we're going through, all that's going on around us. Being able to just step away from it, the craziness, for a while, because it can really weigh on you and pull you down if you allow it. So you recently shared a post where you talked about visual imagery, the purpose of it, and that the purpose and of it is to make us feel. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, when I was younger, those photo books, the images just captivated me. And I loved that feeling. It's still like that childhood feeling I can't get rid of. So I feel like it's been with me always that I'm just a visual person. And I know how powerful that can be for me. And I wanted to share that with other people because it can be, like we talked about, a good distraction, but it can also be used in ways to heal. Yes. In ways to see yourself in a different light. There's lots of ways visual imagery can impact a person.
Yeah, absolutely. In healing, I think that is the purpose of the work, really, is to promote healing in your heart. And really, it's like if people were to just join in with that, just that purpose alone, like let me create the story, let me tell the story, that my heart wants to tell, so that I can feel the emotions that need to be felt and begin to work through those things, so I can see the light in it, sharing it with others, because oftentimes that is the very first step in healing over anything, is just telling the story. And it's like, however you choose to tell the story, whether you tell the story with words or through images or a combination of the two, just beginning to even tell your story, that is the birthplace of healing, in my opinion. Now, one belief that I have, that I've always had, is I believe that the storyteller is present in the work somewhere, even if it is a small, insignificant detail. I think that that's how the work and the art and the story ends up becoming hope-filled and starts to really work together to create that environment for healing. That's how I feel you begin to really make a true connection with your audience, when there's some piece of you in the work somewhere. No matter what type of story that I'm telling, I always feel like there's a part of me in there. There's some element of that story that has a direct connection to me as the writer, as the pencil artist, whatever I may be drawing. Do you feel that same way, that there is a piece of you in the work that you create?
Absolutely. I think every piece of work that I create is intentional. I mean, there's a reason I'm doing it. And it stems back from when I was younger, like not having that voice. So I want to provide that voice for others. And so my main focus is on helping people see something a little bit brighter than maybe their memories remind them of, lifting people up. There's lots of other artists and photographers that do the similar kind of work that I do, but their images are dark and heavy and have these, they're amazing images, and they're just as storytelling, but in a different way. But that didn't resonate with me. I didn't want my work to be dark and heavy. I want it to be light and bright and empowering. So that's my focus, is to focus on the good things. Well, yes, there's always bad things. I never just toss away that there's bad, but there's always something you can grab onto,
Yes.
no matter how bad things are. So that's what I want, my message for my clients and the people that I work with.
Yes. And I believe I recall you telling me that even with your students, you pretty much encourage them also to be present in the work. Your students in the art of storytelling. You said that when you show them an image, you ask them, what is it that you carry them through? Tell me that again.
Yeah. So I'm working with some of my advanced students who've been with me for a while. So I'm not so much just having them copy what I do, but now I'm really diving deeper into their talents as a storyteller. So I'm allowing them to take their own photos or find photos that have meaning to the story that they're trying to tell. They have to tell their own story now, and I often encourage them to pick one word of the theme of the story that you're trying to tell, and then work off of that. Sometimes that helps them pull the right pieces together that are gonna make sense. So I'll tell them to find an image, look at the image, and tell me what you like about it, and then tell me what you don't like about it. What would you change about it? And that's kind of how I coach my kids too in life. Like, what do you like about your life right now? What don't you like? Well, how can we change it? So that's how I approach my students and trying to make those composites that are really, really captivating.
Yes, and I think that actually is probably the perfect takeaway in terms of the art of storytelling and the art of telling our own stories in our lives. You know, look at your life. What do you like? What do you not like? And now, well, then how can you change it? How can you be intentional about telling your story? What can you do differently to tell the story that you want the world to know about you? So I think that's awesome. Thank you, Dana. So where can everybody follow you in terms of the photos as well as your pencil portraits?
Yes, so I have two different websites and social medias. So I'll just direct you to the websites first, and then you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. For my photography work, you can find me at photographybydana.com. You can see all the fun projects I'm working on there. And if you're interested in pencil portraits, if you know anyone that has suffered an infant loss, please visit my website, portraitsbydana.com. You'll see some very encouraging images there, some very powerful images there, and it's very healing. So if you know someone that has experienced that, please feel free to share my website with them, because most grieving families don't know this type of thing is available to them. And when they find me, they're so grateful that they have this option.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Dana. I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. This has been great. And hopefully the listeners will walk away understanding that they are a masterpiece. Their lives are masterpieces, and they're the storytellers. So thank you for watching this week's episode of the Birthing Hope podcast. If you know an inspirational woman whose life and experiences carry a message of hope, then email me at creator@birthinghope.com. I'd love to invite her to the conversation, or perhaps you are that woman. Also, visit the website at birthinghope.com. There, you'll find links to subscribe and download so you'll never miss an episode. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Birthing Hope Official. And remember, subscribe to this channel. Until next time, remember, create your best hope-filled life.